And now it's time to preview an upcoming game with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again. Today I'm here with another Dice Tower preview for Kickstarter. This time we're going to be taking a look at a 2 to 6 player game about winemaking called Viticulture. It plays out on this nice map right here. This is a worker placement style game in which you're going to be putting workers out in order to plant vines, to harvest those vines, to crush them in order to make wine, and then to sell that wine to your customers in order to try and get to 20 victory points first. So real quick, we'll take a look at the prototype components for this game. We will see how the game plays and what it's all about, and then we'll come back here and get my summary of the game Viticulture. Here you can see the prototype components for Viticulture. Now, a reminder, these are indeed prototype components, as with all of the previews we do. They may not look exactly the same in the final copy of the game, but will serve similar functions. Now, this is a game about making wine, and it plays 2 to 6 players and will scale appropriately. And this is going to be predominantly a worker placement game. So what we're looking at here is a board for worker placement, and the game is going to take place over a series of years, an indeterminate number of years broken into 4 seasons, which will have different aspects to them. So in each season, at the beginning of the game, you're going to choose a start player, and that player will be the first player to start the spring season. And during the spring season, you're going to determine what time your workers are going to wake up, or in what order your workers are going to wake up. And you'll see that over here in this portion. So taking a closer look at this track, the spring track, this is where you're going to determine when your workers wake up. And the first player, let's say it's green, gets to choose any one of these times, 1 through 7, in order to wake up. Now I know they don't show times, but this is the order. And the further down you choose, the better the reward is going to be for letting your workers sleep later, but the later you're going to go in turn order, so the worse for your winery. Now, so if you choose any of these, the first spot gives you nothing, the second spot's going to give you a $1 bonus for taking it, the third spot will let you draw a card. These are going to be vine cards that you'll plant out on your fields in order to grow different wines. We'll go over those later. The fourth spot is going to let you draw what is called a wine order, which is going to be a order that you're trying to fill by making different wines. They look like this. They're purple cards, and they have a different order on them. The fifth spot will give you 1 victory point. The sixth spot will give you a temporary worker for the round, so this will last you 1 whole year. And the 7th spot lets you draw what is called either a summer or a winter visitor card, which are going to be special bonus cards that you can play on your turn to get better effects. After you've gone through spring and determined the wake-up order and the player turn order for the rest of the year, you're going to move on to the summer phase, which is going to be the first of 2 worker placement phases in the game. Each player is going to start the game with 3 workers to use throughout the whole first year, so you're going to want to try and allocate these appropriately through the 2 different worker placement phases. But you'll see there are several different actions available here. The yellow parts are these summer actions that are available. And dependent on how many players there are, there's going to be more of these different actions available. All of them will be available, but different spaces will be available in more player games. In a 2-player game, only the first space of each action is available. With 3 or 4 players, the middle space becomes available, and with 5 and 6 players, all 3 spaces are available for each action. Now when you place here, the first player will choose which action they want to take, and they'll place a worker out, and they will immediately take the action associated with it. You'll note the middle spots, which will be open in any game player number from 3 to 6, have a bonus associated with them. Now you don't have to place an order, so if you're the first player to go here, you can place in the middle space to get a bonus on your action. These different actions have different things to do with your vineyard. And so you'll look here, this first spot here is going to be a way to get you money. It says give a vineyard tour for $2. If you place here, you're going to get $2, but if you're the first one and you place in the middle spot, you can get $3. The next spot here is going to be drawing a vine card, and these vine cards, like I showed you earlier, are going to be the vines that you can plant on your fields, which you'll see in a little bit, in order to grow grapes. This one is a Merlot, which actually requires a special building called irrigation in order to plant it. It's a 3 grape, and on your fields you can have up to 6 grapes planted. So you could mix 3 red grapes with other 3 total points of red grapes and have a 6 total grape on one of your fields, no more than 6 on each field. So you'll have a hand of these cards that you'll be trying to plant out to your fields. The next space is going to be play 1 summer visitor card, and that's these yellow cards here. On these cards, they're going to have some type of effect that you can play. For example, this one says draw 1 wine order card and 1 winter visitor card. So you could take your action here to play one of these cards and draw some more cards by playing this one, discarding this to the pile. The next action is going to be sell grapes. You won't have any grapes yet because you'll have to plant some fields with your vines and harvest your grapes in the winter. But once you do, you'll have grapes on your crush pad. every player is going to have one of these sheets, and they'll have a pad where they can gather their grapes, no more than one grape of each value and each color. But if you wanted to, say you didn't have a use for some of these grapes because you didn't need that certain color of wine, you could sell these grapes for the values listed next to them. A 4-value red grape would be worth $2. And if you took the middle spot, you would get a bonus victory point for doing this. The next spot here is going to be planting those vines. So as I said, you'll have the vine cards. You may have your Merlot here, and you could plant this out to one of your empty fields in order to put it down and maybe harvest it later to get some grapes. Now, as I said, this one requires you to have irrigation, which is a building. And that leads us to the Build 1 structure spot on the board. So if we look at this sheet, we can see that there are several different buildings you can build along the right-hand side of the sheet. In addition, there are some buildings that you can build down here to store more wine. If we look through all of these, you can see that there's the yoke, which when you build it for $2, is going to let you take vines back into your hand during the summer, and it has a special worker placement spot on there. In the winter, it has a different action. The cottage is going to let you draw extra visitors each time we get to the fall phase of the game, and we'll cover that shortly. The windmill says whenever you plant a vine, you're going to get a victory point. The tasting room says whenever you give a tour, you're going to get a victory point. And the trellis and irrigation buildings are going to allow you to plant certain vines that have those prerequisites. In addition, the medium cellar and the large cellar allow you to store better wines. You can see this one allows you to store the 4 through 6 red and white wines, as well as the 4 through 6 blushes. And the large cellar allows you to store 7 through 9 of all 3 types of wine, as well as to store sparkling wines at the bottom there. So that is your player sheet. And those are all of the available summer actions. After the summer, you're going to move on to the fall, and this is when you're going to draw visitor cards. Now, by default, each player is going to draw one of these visitor cards every fall season. You have your choice of either a summer or a winter visitor, dependent on which one you think you need more of in your hand. And you have a hand limit of 7 cards. So that counts for all of these cards: your vines, your summer visitors, your wine orders, and your winter visitors. So you get to draw one of these, but if you have the cottage, you can draw 2 in any combination. After fall, you're going to move on to winter, which is the second worker placement phase, in which you're able to place any of the workers you still have left over from the summer. So you'll place some during the summer, you'll go to the fall and get your visitor cards, and then you'll move on to the winter action. So you may only have 1 worker left at this point, or you may have all 3 if you pass during the summer early. In the winter, you're going to have several different action choices, but it's mostly going to be about harvesting your vines from your fields and making wine from grapes that you crush from your crush pad. So you're also going to be able to fill orders at this point, and the first action you can see here is to draw a wine order card. Now these cards are purple, and they have at the top left a victory point number for fulfilling them, an amount of money you'll get when you end a year after you've fulfilled it, and the wines that are required to fulfill the order. So you'll see here we need a 3 red and a 5 white wine in order to fulfill this card. This spot will allow you to draw those cards, and the center one will allow you to draw 2 cards if you get there early. The second spot is going to be to play winter visitor cards. These cards are much like the summer visitor cards that you can play in the summer, but will have different effects. So this one allows you to take a whole host of actions, from harvesting your fields to crushing some grapes to making some wine to even fulfilling a wine order, all by playing 1 card if you happen to have it. The harvest a field action is going to be the action that lets you take those planted vines off of your field. So if you had a vine, you could take it off. In this case, we would get a 1 white grape. And we would place a token on our sheet here to show that we have a 1 white grape. Now, if instead we happen to have both of these cards played out here, we have a 2 total of white and a 1 total of red. This is still under the 6 that we can plant in the field, and this would give us a 2 white grape and a 1 red grape. That's basically how harvesting fields works. And you'll note that you can harvest all the way up to a total of 9 somehow. These will age over time. Really, you can only harvest a maximum of 6 because you can only plant 6 in a field. But over time, these will get aged and they'll increase in value, or in their crush pad value, which is temporary. When you harvest, you're going to take these off and you're going to put them in the discard pile. And you'll move on with the rest of the game. So the center spot here is going to let you harvest up to 2 fields at one time. After harvesting, or once you've got something on your crush pad, you can crush grapes in order to make wine. And so, for example, let's say we had this over here again. We have our sheet, and you happen to have a 3 white and a 2 red. When you choose to crush grapes, you're going to crush 1 color of grape. and that's going to make wine of that color. So for example, if we crushed this 3 white, we would get a 3 white wine, and we would put a marker on our cellar. Now, we can never have more than 1 3 white wine. We can never have more than 1 3 white grape. So once this is kind of covered up, if you get another 3, it's going to become a 2. And you'll have to be careful not to harvest too many things of the same type because they get devalued eventually, and you won't be able to hold them. But that's really kind of aside the point. If you happen to have multiple white grapes when you crush, and you choose to crush white, you're going to get 1 of each different type of value. So in this case, we would get a 3 and a 2 if we had a 3 and a 2 white grape. If you were to crush a 4, when you don't have a medium cellar, you're only going to get a 3. It automatically devalues because you can't store a 4. But let's say that you had built your medium cellar already, and that you had a 4. You would crush this, and you would get a 4 white wine. If, for example, you have that medium cellar built, and you have both a 4 white and a 2 red, you can crush to make what's called a blush wine. And you have to have a total value of 4 between 2 tokens, 1 white and 1 red. So if we were to crush both of these, they would create a 6 value blush wine. After you've built the large cellar, you can crush to make what's called sparkling wine, and you can hold wines of 7 value or higher. In order to create one of these, you have to have 2 reds and 1 white, totaling at least 7 value. Then you can crush these, and you would get a wine of value 8, putting it on the sparkling in your large cellar. Placing on the center spot of the crushed grapes pad gets you 1 extra crush on your turn. The other spots are going to be a little less involved in terms of making wine, but are going to allow you to either sell the wine or to get more workers or to hire out your extra workers for money. So this spot here allows you to train new workers. This is how you're going to get your extra workers in the game, by paying money. So it costs you 4 money to make a new worker. If you choose the center spot, it's going to cost you 1 less money. The fill 1 wine order spot is going to let you finish these wine cards that you have if you happen to have the appropriate wines in your hand and you take the action, with the center spot giving you a bonus victory point. The last spot on the board is going to allow you to hire out workers that you have left over for $1 a piece, and you're going to place your extra workers here basically to get more money, although you may place them earlier than that in order to try and get a new worker if you don't have enough money on hand. After everyone has placed all of their workers during the winter round, you're going to move on to the end of the year. And at this point, any wines that you have in your cellar and any grapes that you have on your crush pad are going to get aged, and they're going to move up in terms of value. So if you had a 1 red grape, it would move up, and if you had a 2 white wine, it would move up. And those are going to get better as time goes on, so holding on to them does have its benefits. After that, you're going to collect money that you have for any of your filled orders. So if you'd finish this order here, you would get 1 money each year. You're going to discard down to 7 cards in your hand, and then you're going to rotate the first player marker, which is going to determine who chooses first in terms of wake-up order for the next year. The entire objective of the game is to get to 20 points, and in a year when someone gets to 20 points, you're going to finish out the year, and then at the end of that year, whoever has the most points is going to be the winner. If there's a tie at that point, the tie will go to whoever has the most money, and after that is going to go to the total value of grapes that are on the crush pad and the total value of wine that's in the crush pad, and whoever has the most in those is going to be the winner. If there's still a tie after all of that, you guys are really good, but basically whoever has the most victory points at the end of the year in which somebody scores 20 will be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is Viticulture in a nutshell. It's a 2 to 6 player game and scales pretty well all the way from 2 players, where you have a very limited number of actions that can be taken by each player, only 1 of each type, to 6 players where there are 3 opened up, but there's 1 specific spot on each action that's better than the other. So a pretty good scaling all the way from 2 up to 6. On top of that, the game is pretty easy to learn. Although there are 12 actions, you're not going to be taking all of those 12 actions all the time. Maybe sometimes you won't have grapes to crush, so you won't be crushing grapes, and sometimes you won't have wine to fill your orders, so you're not going to be filling orders. But overall, even though there are those 12 actions, they're pretty easy to remember, especially since they're all written on the board and on your player sheet. I didn't cover all of the various cards because there are way too many to cover, but they do very much so enhance the game. All of those cards have different abilities, and some of the cards are very, very powerful, especially those summer and winter visitor cards. When you get those, they're great to have because they definitely increase the amount of stuff you can do on your turn. not necessarily the different actions, but they modify the actions, making them better. So some of them may increase the amount of money you get for giving a tour, and you just have to spend the worker to play a card, not to give the actual tour. Some of them may allow you to plant more vines, or to harvest more vines, or to crush extra grapes, or the one card that I did show you, which allows you to harvest, crush, make a wine, and fill an order. So getting those cards is key to the gameplay here. But I'm kind of rambling on now. You've seen the game. You can tell if the game is for you or not. And if the game is for you, I know that they're trying to round out the Kickstarter project. They'd love to have your pledge. So check them out on Kickstarter. Give them a pledge if it looks interesting to you. And thank you for watching the video.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.